The hum of the quantum resonator was usually a soothing sound, a lullaby of science in my otherwise silent lab at Caltech. It was late, past midnight, just how I liked it. No interruptions, just me, my equations, and the vast, beautiful unknowns of the universe. My name is Dr. Aris Thorne, and for 20 years I dedicated my life to theoretical physics, chasing the whispers of reality's deepest secrets. I dealt in cold, hard facts, in proofs and peer-reviewed journals. Aliens, UFOs, childhood fantasies, campfire stories. Certainly not the subject of serious scientific inquiry. That was before the 17th of October. I remember the date because it was also my late mother's birthday, a day usually marked by quiet reflection, not cosmic intervention. I was fine-tuning the resonator, attempting to detect subtle gravitational waves from distant quasars, a long shot, but a shot nonetheless. The data stream was a familiar cascade of numbers, graphs, and the occasional spike of interstellar noise. Then a pattern emerged. Not a spike, not noise, but a perfect, rhythmic sequence. It was too precise, too intentional to be natural. It pulsed, a silent heartbeat against the background radiation, originating from somewhere beyond our solar system, yet somehow directed. My first thought was a glitch. My second, a sophisticated prank from a rival lab. My third, as the sequence repeated, became more complex and began to resonate with the very frequencies I was attempting to measure, was a cold, unfamiliar dread. This wasn't random. It was a message, and it wasn't for everyone. It felt personal, like a whisper meant only for my ears. The hum of the resonator shifted, a low thrum that vibrated through the very floor of the lab, up my legs and settled in my chest. I felt a strange sense of anticipation, an undeniable pull. I spent the next 72 hours in a frenzy, analyzing, cross-referencing, running every diagnostic imaginable. The signal remained, clear as a bell, embedded within the gravitational wave data. It wasn't a radio transmission, it was something far more advanced, a kind of modulated energy that subtly bent space-time to carry information. I couldn't decrypt it, not yet, but I could feel its presence, a silent observer in my lab. It felt like standing at the edge of a vast, dark ocean, knowing something immense lurked beneath the surface. My scientific skepticism, once a fortress, began to crack, replaced by an unnerving curiosity. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that my life, and perhaps humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos, was about to change forever. The message wasn't just from somewhere, it was for someone, and that someone, I was beginning to realize, was me. I decided to keep it to myself. Who would believe me? A respected physicist claiming to receive an alien message through gravitational waves? I'd be laughed out of academia, stripped of my funding, perhaps even institutionalized. But the weight of this secret, the sheer magnitude of what I was witnessing, pressed down on me like a physical force. My sleep became restless, filled with vivid, almost prophetic dreams of distant stars and silent observers. The signal, though still indecipherable, seemed to seep into my subconscious, an unspoken dialogue that transcended language. I felt like a man walking a tightrope over an abyss, the future of two civilizations, ours and theirs, hanging in the balance. Then one night, as I stared at the oscillating patterns on my monitors, a single, clear image flashed across the main screen, superimposed over the data. It was brief, no more than a second, but it was unmistakable. A stylized depiction of our planet, Earth, surrounded by what looked like cracks spreading across its surface. And then a symbol, intricate, elegant, unlike anything I had ever seen. It was a warning, a profound, urgent warning that transcended the bounds of scientific data. This wasn't just communication, it was an appeal, and I had a sickening feeling I was about to find out what they wanted.
The image of the cracking earth and the alien symbol haunted me. It was too specific, too urgent to ignore. I redoubled my efforts, poring over every scrap of information I had, trying to find a pattern, a key to unlock the message. Days blurred into nights, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an almost manic obsession. My apartment became a secondary lab, whiteboards covered in scribbled equations, stacks of books on linguistics, ancient symbols, and even obscure mythological texts cluttering every surface. I was chasing ghosts, yet every fiber of my being told me they were real, and they were trying to communicate. Then, a breakthrough. It wasn't in physics, but in mathematics. The rhythmic pulses in the gravitational waves, when mapped onto a non-Euclidean geometric framework, began to form a complex, evolving fractal pattern. And within that pattern, I identified repeating motifs, almost like phonemes in a language. It was incredibly subtle, hidden deep within the noise, but once I saw it, it was unmistakable. This wasn't just a signal. It was an incredibly sophisticated, compressed data stream, designed to be almost imperceptible to any but the most dedicated observer, and perhaps only to those who were looking for the unconventional. As I started to decode these phonemes, I realized the message wasn't just data, it was conceptual. They weren't transmitting words, but ideas. It was like trying to understand an entire philosophy through a single perfect snowflake. The first concepts that became clear were warning, imbalance, and future. Then, chillingly, conflict and self-destruction. It was abstract, yet horrifyingly clear. They were showing me humanity's trajectory, a path leading to ruin, and it resonated with the image of the cracking earth. One evening, while meticulously cross-referencing a particularly complex sequence, the air in my lab suddenly grew heavy, thick with an almost palpable energy. The lights flickered, and a low, resonant hum filled the room, not from the resonator, but from everywhere. The temperature dropped several degrees, and the hair on my arms stood on end. My monitors, which had been displaying the fractal patterns, suddenly went dark, then flared back to life, showing not data, but a single clear image. It wasn't the cracking earth this time, it was a face. Not a face as we understand it, but a composite of light and shadow, fluid and shifting, yet undeniably intelligent, undeniably present. It had no discernible features, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, yet I felt an overwhelming sense of ancient wisdom, profound sorrow, and immense power emanating from it. It was communicating directly, not through signals, but through a direct, telepathic link that bypassed all my instruments. My mind was flooded with images, not of distant galaxies, but of Earth. Images of devastating wars, of cities consumed by flames, of vast populations displaced, of a planet scarred and dying. It was a nightmare, but I was wide awake. The images were so vivid, so real, that I felt the heat of the fires, heard the cries, tasted the ash. This wasn't just a warning, it was a plea. They weren't just observing, they were intervening. The being or presence conveyed a single, undeniable truth. Humanity was on a path to a devastating global conflict, a conflict so catastrophic it would threaten the very existence of our species and irrevocably damage our planet. They called it the Great Sundering. Then, the images faded, the hum subsided, the lights stabilized. My monitors returned to their familiar data streams, but the fractal patterns seemed deeper, more meaningful. I was left alone in the cold lab, trembling, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't just theoretical physics anymore. This was a direct, undeniable encounter with an intelligence beyond human comprehension. And they had chosen me to be their messenger, to prevent the Great Sundering. But how? How could one physicist stop the collective madness of an entire planet? The weight of their expectation of humanity's potential fate settled on my shoulders like a crushing burden. My comfortable life of academic pursuit was over. My new mission revealed in a silent telepathic flash, had just begun.
The morning after the telepathic encounter felt strangely normal. The sun streamed into my lab, the city hummed with its usual rhythm, and the quantum resonator purred as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everything had changed. The weight of the Great Sundering pressed down on me. How could I, a theoretical physicist, prevent a global war? The aliens hadn't offered a blueprint, only a vision of impending catastrophe and a silent plea. My task felt monumental, impossible. I tried to resume my normal routine, but every equation seemed trivial, every scientific paper utterly meaningless in the face of what I now knew. I felt like I was carrying a secret that could either save or doom humanity. The isolation was agonizing. I couldn't confide in my colleagues. They'd dismiss it as a stress-induced hallucination. My closest friend, Dr. Lena Hansen, a brilliant astrophysicist, would dissect my claims with rigorous logic, leaving no room for the inexplicable. I was truly alone with this cosmic burden. The alien signal, which I now mentally referred to as Harbinger, continued to pulse through the gravitational waves. It was no longer just data. It felt like a constant presence, a watchful eye. I found myself talking to it, silently at first, then whispering questions into the empty lab. What do you want me to do? How do I stop this? The answers didn't come in words, but in subtle shifts in the fractal patterns, in flashes of abstract imagery in my mind's eye. They conveyed a need for understanding, for a shift in perspective, and most importantly, for unity. One afternoon, a subtle new layer appeared in the Harbinger signal. It was a faint, almost subliminal frequency that seemed to resonate with a specific region on Earth. I spent hours triangulating its origin. My instruments, designed for deep space, struggled to pinpoint such a localized anomaly. But slowly, painstakingly, a location emerged. A remote, seemingly unremarkable stretch of desert in southern Nevada, not far from the infamous Area 51, but distinctly separate, a place called Elysium Sands. This discovery sent a jolt of both excitement and fear through me. Was this their meeting point? A physical location for a more direct form of communication? Or a trap? My scientific skepticism, though battered, was not entirely gone. I debated for days. The risks were immense. If the government caught wind of my activities, I could lose everything, perhaps even my freedom. But the vision of the cracking earth, the silent plea from the abstract face, was too powerful to ignore. The fate of humanity, if their warnings were true, rested on my shoulders. I decided to go. I fabricated a story for my department, a remote research sabbatical, a deep dive into obscure quantum field theories that required absolute solitude. It was flimsy, but I was respected enough that they didn't question it too deeply. I packed a small bag, mostly survival gear, some basic communication equipment, and a laptop loaded with my Harbinger research. I also took a small encrypted recording device. If this was my last act, I wanted there to be a record. The drive across the barren Nevada landscape was surreal. The vast empty expanses under the enormous sky felt both liberating and terrifying. Every mile deeper into the desert felt like another step away from the world I knew, another step towards the unknown. The coordinates led me to a desolate stretch of cracked earth and sparse scrub brush, miles from any paved road. There was nothing here. No buildings, no signs, just an unnerving silence broken only by the wind. I set up a small camp, camouflaging my vehicle as best I could. Under the vast, star-dusted desert sky, I activated my portable gravitational wave detector. The Harbinger signal was stronger here, clearer, almost pulsing directly into the dry earth beneath me. It felt like standing on the precipice of a profound revelation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, a new subtle frequency emerged from the signal, growing steadily, resonating not with my equipment, but within my very bones. Suddenly, a localized electromagnetic pulse hit my camp, briefly knocking out my electronics. Panic flared, but then a calm washed over me, a feeling of inevitability.
A shimmering distortion appeared in the air, perhaps 100 yards away, growing rapidly. It wasn't a ship, not yet. It was more like a portal, a ripple in the fabric of reality itself, radiating an intense, pure white light. My heart pounded, but I felt no fear, only an overwhelming sense of destiny. This was it, the direct contact, the answer to their plea or the beginning of a journey far beyond anything I could have ever imagined. My purpose, given to me by beings from beyond the stars, was about to truly begin.
The shimmering portal intensified, growing taller, wider, until it stood like a luminous gateway against the darkening desert sky. The light wasn't blinding, but rather inviting, a soft, pure radiance that somehow seemed to calm my racing heart. I felt no heat from it, no discernible sound, yet an incredible energy emanated from its depths, vibrating through the very ground. My scientific mind screamed for caution, for empirical data, but a deeper, more primal instinct pulled me forward. This was what I had come for. As I approached, the light revealed subtle structures within it, not solid, but like streams of liquid light flowing upwards, twisting into elegant, impossibly intricate forms. And then, from within this luminescent vortex, something began to coalesce. Not a ship, not a physical craft as depicted in science fiction, but a being, or rather, a collective of beings, their forms made of the same pure, flowing light. They were tall, ethereal, without distinct limbs or features, yet their presence was overwhelmingly intelligent, ancient, and benevolent. They communicated, not with sound, but directly into my mind, a chorus of voices that resonated with clarity and profound wisdom. Their words bypassed language, conveying concepts and emotions with startling efficiency. "Eris Thorn," they began, a name I hadn't spoken out loud in hours. "You have answered our call. We are the sentinels of the void, and we come to you as harbingers of a choice." They explained their existence, a civilization far older than humanity that had witnessed countless species rise and fall across the cosmos. They did not interfere with planetary evolution unless a species reached a critical juncture, a point where its own technological advancement threatened its self-annihilation. Humanity, they revealed, was at such a juncture. The cracks I had seen on Earth were metaphors for the deep divisions, the escalating conflicts, the unchecked aggression that would inevitably lead to the great sundering within the next 2 terrestrial decades. They showed me more visions, more vivid and chilling than before. Not just abstract fires, but specific flashpoints, rising tensions in geopolitical hotspots, the terrifying proliferation of advanced weaponry, the manipulation of information to sow discord, and the almost tribalistic fervor that gripped nations. It was a tapestry of our own making, woven with threads of fear and misunderstanding. They did not judge, merely presented the inevitable consequences of our current trajectory. "We have observed your species for millennia," they projected into my mind. "You possess immense potential for creation, for beauty, for compassion. Yet you are equally prone to destruction, to hatred, to short-sightedness. We offer you not salvation, but a path, a way to avert the greatest catastrophe your world has ever known." I finally found my voice, a raspy whisper against the vastness of their presence. "What path? What do you want me to do? I'm just one man." Their response was immediate, filled with a gentle but firm resolve. "You are not just one man, Eris Thorn. You are a bridge. You possess the scientific mind to comprehend the data, the critical thinking to question, and a spirit receptive enough to hear our plea. Your skepticism was your strength, your acceptance your burden.
They explained that their advanced technology allowed them to perceive causality, to model potential futures with astonishing accuracy. They had identified specific nodes of influence, individuals and institutions whose actions or inactions would directly contribute to or prevent the global conflict. I was to be their conduit, their messenger, to subtly influence these nodes, not through direct command, but by sharing information, insights gleaned from their vast cosmic perspective, data that could expose hidden agendas, reveal common ground, and redirect humanity's focus away from conflict and towards shared advancement. It felt like an impossible mission, like asking a single ant to redirect an entire colony. "We will guide you," they projected into my mind. "We will provide the tools, the knowledge, the understanding, but the choice and the execution remains yours. Fail, and your world will descend into the fire. Succeed, and you will usher in an era of unparalleled peace and prosperity. The great sundering awaits your decision." The light intensified one last time, enveloping me in its pure embrace, not burning, but cleansing. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the portal began to retract, the shimmering light coalescing back into a single brilliant point, then vanishing. The desert was once again dark, silent, and empty, save for the faint hum of my equipment and the profound, life-altering weight of my new purpose. I was no longer Dr. Eris Thorne, theoretical physicist. I was Project Harbinger, the reluctant, solitary guardian of Earth's fragile future.
The journey back from Elysium Sands was a blur. My mind reeled with the magnitude of what had transpired. I was a messenger, a bridge, a solitary operative in a cosmic mission to save humanity from itself. The Sentinels had promised guidance and tools, but the immediate reality was just me, my small lab, and a secret that could break the world. My first task, as the Sentinels subtly imprinted upon my mind, was to establish a secure and untraceable communication channel, one that would allow me to access the information they would provide without alerting any terrestrial intelligence agencies. This wasn't about building a new quantum resonator. It was about repurposing existing, overlooked frequencies and protocols. They guided me not with explicit instructions, but with intuitive nudges, directing my focus to obscure lines of code, forgotten satellite channels, and dormant network architectures. It was like they were showing me the hidden pathways within humanity's own technological backbone. I spent weeks holed up in my lab, working in a state of hyper-focus, deciphering their subtle directions. My colleagues thought I was deep into a new, complex theory, and I let them believe it. I developed a unique, untraceable uplink, a kind of digital ghost channel that could receive highly compressed data packets from the Harbinger signal. These packets weren't just raw information. They were intelligently curated, designed to be digestible and impactful. The first piece of information they sent was astounding. It wasn't the blueprint for a superweapon or a grand philosophical treatise. It was an anomaly in global financial markets, a deeply hidden, systemic vulnerability that, if exploited, could trigger a cascade of economic collapse, a precursor to the very conflicts the Sentinels warned about. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was hard data, predictive modeling on a scale I couldn't have imagined, revealing the fragile interconnectedness of our global economy. My task wasn't to expose it directly. That would cause chaos. Instead, I was to plant this information, to subtly guide the right individual, an ethical financial analyst or a whistleblower, towards its discovery. I realized the Sentinels weren't asking me to be the hero, but to enable heroes, to be the catalyst for change, working from the shadows. This was far more insidious and far more effective than any direct intervention. I identified a brilliant, somewhat reclusive financial journalist named Sarah Chen, known for her investigative prowess and unyielding integrity. She had a history of exposing corporate malfeasance. The Sentinels provided me with a series of anonymous data drops, disguised as leaked insider information, designed to pique her interest and lead her down the rabbit hole. I carefully crafted encrypted emails, uploaded anonymous forum posts, and even left subtle clues in publicly accessible academic databases, all pointing towards the anomaly. The process was agonizingly slow and terrifyingly delicate. Every move felt like walking a tightrope. A single misstep could expose me, or worse, compromise the mission. I watched Sarah Chen's articles and public appearances with bated breath. For weeks, nothing. Then a small, obscure article appeared on a fringe financial blog, citing unnamed sources and hinting at a deep systemic vulnerability. It was her. She was on the trail. The feeling of validation was immense, but quickly replaced by renewed anxiety. I was playing a dangerous game, manipulating powerful forces from the shadows. The Sentinel's next data drop confirmed it. The information was successfully propagating, influencing the right minds. Then they shifted my focus to the next stage: geopolitical tensions. The next packet contained intricate details of a covert military operation planned by a major global power, designed to destabilize a rival nation under false pretenses. This was the kind of ignition point that could easily escalate into the Great Sundering. Again, my task was not direct exposure. Instead, the Sentinels provided highly sensitive, verifiable intelligence that, if leaked to a specific, ethical international oversight committee, would force the operation to be aborted or at least severely delayed, buying humanity precious time. This was even more dangerous. I was dealing with state secrets, with lives and geopolitical stability. The Sentinels guided me to an obscure, encrypted server maintained by a defunct peace organization long thought abandoned. They showed me how to inject the data there, knowing that a specific ethical hacker within the international community regularly monitored such archives for lost information. It was a digital dead drop, precise and anonymous. As I uploaded the encrypted data, staring at the blinking cursor on my screen, I felt a wave of profound isolation. My life, once so comfortably predictable, was now a constant dance on the edge of a knife. I was a ghost in the machine, a silent guardian, working tirelessly to pull humanity back from the brink. The vastness of space, once a subject of detached academic study, was now a source of direct, urgent communication, guiding my every move. The fate of Earth was no longer a theoretical problem. It was my daily burden, my secret crusade, orchestrated from the silent depths of the cosmos.
Months turned into a year. My life became a constant oscillation between the mundane demands of my academic position and the terrifying clandestine operations of Project Harbinger. Each successful seed planting brought a fleeting sense of triumph, quickly overshadowed by the next urgent directive from the Sentinels. I learned to live with the constant hum of their signal in my mind, a subtle guiding presence that had become as natural as my own thoughts. The information they provided was incredibly diverse. One month, it was a flaw in a new hypersonic missile defense system, exposed just before its deployment, preventing an arms race escalation. The next, it was irrefutable evidence of environmental devastation caused by a specific corporate entity, triggering public outcry and policy changes that averted ecological collapse in a vulnerable region. They didn't just prevent conflicts, they nudged humanity towards sustainability, towards a greater understanding of our interconnectedness.
My methods grew more sophisticated. I mastered the art of digital ghosting, creating untraceable identities, routing information through layers of proxies that would make any government intelligence agency tear their hair out. I became a phantom, a whisper in the global network, carefully influencing the flow of information. But the mental toll was immense. The isolation gnawed at me. I couldn't share my triumphs, couldn't voice my fears. Every success felt like a secret burden, every failure a personal wound. One particular directive from the Sentinels was unlike any other. They guided me towards a groundbreaking discovery in quantum energy, something that had the potential to revolutionize global energy production, rendering fossil fuels obsolete overnight. But it also had a darker potential. It could be weaponized, creating an energy source so potent it could destabilize entire continents. The Sentinel's message was clear. This knowledge must be introduced, but only to a collective of trusted, ethically minded scientists, individuals whose primary motivation was global good, not power or profit. Identifying such a group was harder than exposing a financial anomaly. The Sentinels, with their vast understanding of human psychology, guided me to a small, independent research collective based in a seemingly unassuming facility in rural Vermont. They were a diverse group of physicists, engineers, and environmentalists, renowned for their collaborative spirit and unwavering commitment to ethical science. Dr. Evelyn Reed, their brilliant and fiercely principled leader, immediately stood out. I needed to get the initial spark of this discovery into their hands without revealing its extraterrestrial origin or my own involvement. The Sentinels provided me with abstract theoretical frameworks, complex equations, and simulated experimental data, all designed to look like the work of a reclusive, genius rogue scientist. I painstakingly compiled this into a series of anonymous, encrypted data packets and, using a highly sophisticated dead drop, uploaded them to a secure server that I knew Dr. Reed's team frequented for obscure academic papers. The wait was excruciating. Days turned into weeks. Then a tremor. A small, almost imperceptible blip on the academic radar. A minor paper published by Dr. Reed's team hinting at novel approaches to quantum resonance. It was a start. The Sentinels confirmed that the seeds had taken root. Evelyn and her team were on the path. But this particular project brought a new layer of danger. The implications of limitless, clean energy were staggering, threatening powerful vested interests. My movements, once almost invisible, started to feel observed. Subtle anomalies appeared in my digital footprint, unusual network traffic patterns linked to my general location, faint traces of surveillance I couldn't quite shake off. The Sentinels confirmed my fears. Terrestrial intelligence agencies, particularly a shadowy, unofficial branch known only as Blackwood, were becoming aware of an unknown player in the global game. They didn't know who or what I was, but they knew something was influencing events. The stakes were escalating. I was no longer just a ghost. I was becoming a target. The Sentinels' guidance became more urgent, their warnings about Blackwood more pronounced. They showed me fleeting images of clandestine facilities, of powerful, faceless individuals pulling strings in the shadows. These people weren't interested in preventing war. They thrived on it, on chaos, on maintaining the status quo of power. I knew I had to be more careful, more precise. My mission wasn't just about influencing events anymore. It was about survival, about staying one step ahead of those who would stop at nothing to uncover the source of these disruptive leaks. The cosmic game I was playing now had very human, very dangerous opponents, and they were closing in.
The feeling of being watched intensified from a nagging worry into a palpable threat. Blackwood, as the Sentinels vaguely referred to this shadowy organization, was no longer a theoretical concept. My secured channels, once seemingly impenetrable, showed subtle signs of probing. False flags, phantom data packets designed to lure me out appeared in the digital ether. They were intelligent, patient, and relentless. The game had shifted from influencing the world to surviving its hunters. The Sentinels, through their subtle guidance, indicated that Blackwood wasn't just a government agency. It was a powerful cabal, interwoven with military-industrial complexes and corporate giants, benefiting directly from global instability. They thrived on conflict, and my mission directly threatened their core interests. My existence, as the anonymous disruptor, was a direct affront. I had to adapt. My lab in Caltech, once my sanctuary, now felt like a cage. I began to implement counter-surveillance measures, not just digital, but physical. Hidden cameras, motion sensors, Faraday cages to block unwanted signals. I became paranoid, checking my routes to work, varying my routines, always looking over my shoulder. Sleep became almost impossible, haunted by the digital specter of Blackwood and the looming vision of the Great Sundering. One night, the Sentinel sent a flash of urgent information. Blackwood had pinpointed my general location and was mobilizing, not for an arrest, but for a disappearance. They wanted me silenced permanently, and my unique communication methods confiscated. The message was accompanied by a clear telepathic image of a remote, secure facility, a Blackwood black site, where I would be taken if captured. It was a place of no return. Panic seized me, cold and sharp. This wasn't a theoretical threat anymore. It was imminent. I had to go dark, vanish. But where? And how could I continue the mission if I was a fugitive? The Sentinel's guidance was surprisingly precise. They directed me to a forgotten, disused underground bunker, a relic from the Cold War, located deep beneath the unassuming farmlands of upstate New York. It was structurally sound, off-grid, and, crucially, protected by layers of bureaucratic red tape and outdated schematics that made it virtually invisible to modern surveillance. The escape was a blur of frantic packing, deleting digital footprints, and a desperate clandestine drive across the country. I abandoned my academic life, my identity, everything. My old life was gone. I was now truly Project Harbinger, living in the shadows. The bunker, when I finally reached it after days of travel, was chillingly desolate. Damp air, decaying equipment, and an oppressive silence. But it was secure. It was hidden. I spent weeks making the bunker habitable and, more importantly, establishing my new, ultra-secure communication hub. The Sentinel's guidance was invaluable, directing me to scavenge specific components from abandoned military surplus, showing me how to jury-rig power sources and construct an advanced, localized gravitational wave antenna that was virtually undetectable. This new setup was primitive in appearance, but technologically superior to anything I had before, designed for absolute stealth. The first mission from the bunker was critical. The Sentinels revealed Blackwood's most insidious plan yet, a sophisticated AI-driven propaganda campaign designed to sow extreme discord within a key democratic nation, pushing it towards civil unrest and international aggression. It was a psychological war, aimed at weakening the target nation from within, making it ripe for external manipulation and conflict. My task was terrifying: to create a counter-narrative, to expose the AI's manipulative algorithms, and to show the public how they were subtly being controlled. This wasn't about leaking data, it was about exposing the very mechanics of deception. The Sentinels provided me with patterns of rhetorical manipulation, psychological triggers, and hidden code signatures within the propaganda streams that, once highlighted, would be undeniable. I used my new anonymous platform to upload carefully crafted analyses, open-source tools for identifying AI-generated disinformation, and compelling visual representations of the AI's manipulative patterns to independent journalists and tech ethicists. It was a race against time, a desperate fight for the truth in a world drowning in engineered lies. The feedback was slow, but it began. Independent tech blogs picked up on the story. Journalists started asking uncomfortable questions.
The AI's influence began to wane as awareness spread. Working in the isolation of the bunker, surrounded by cold concrete and the hum of my makeshift equipment, I felt the immense weight of my new reality. I was an exiled ghost, fighting an invisible war against forces that controlled the very fabric of human society. But the Sentinel's presence, a silent, unwavering beacon, reminded me of the stakes. The great sundering still loomed, but now I had a fighting chance. And for the first time in a long time, amidst the fear and isolation, a fragile ember of hope flickered within me.
My existence in the bunker became a strange blend of advanced espionage and monastic isolation. Days melted into weeks, marked only by the shifting light of my monitors and the relentless rhythm of the Sentinel's communications. I was a ghost, a myth, a shadow moving through the digital veins of a world that didn't know it was being saved, or by whom. The constant pressure from Blackwood was a silent, ever-present hum beneath the surface of my work, a reminder that my every action carried profound risk. The quantum energy breakthrough by Dr. Evelyn Reed's team, seeded by the Sentinel's initial data, was starting to gain traction. Their papers, once niche, were now attracting mainstream attention. The promise of clean, limitless energy was a powerful antidote to the geopolitical tensions fueled by dwindling resources. But with this burgeoning success came a new, terrifying threat. Blackwood saw this as an existential challenge to their control over global energy markets and military power. The Sentinels warned me of a direct threat to Dr. Reed and her team. Blackwood wasn't just observing, they were preparing to discredit, dismantle, or even eliminate the Vermont Collective. Their methods were brutal, their reach far-reaching. My mission shifted from subtle influence to direct protection. I couldn't expose Blackwood directly without revealing myself and risking the entire Harbinger project. I had to intervene with precision from the shadows. The Sentinels provided me with a trove of Blackwood's own internal communications, leaked from within their secure networks. This wasn't just data. It was a psychological profile of their operations, their command structure, their key operatives, their preferred methods of coercion and sabotage. It was their Achilles heel. I couldn't just give this to Dr. Reed. It would put her in even greater danger. Instead, I had to arm her with knowledge she wouldn't even realize she had. I orchestrated a series of coincidences. I anonymously sent Evelyn's team highly specific, technically obscure upgrades for their lab security systems disguised as open-source improvements from a benevolent hacker collective. These upgrades contained hidden protocols that would alert me via my secure bunker network to any intrusion attempts or advanced digital attacks. I also discreetly fed her team information about unusual vulnerabilities in their current data encryption, subtly guiding them to implement stronger, more obscure algorithms that only I could penetrate, if absolutely necessary. The most daring move involved a key Blackwood operative, a former intelligence officer known for his ruthless efficiency. The Sentinels highlighted his weakness, an unyielding loyalty to a specific code of ethics, however twisted, and a profound personal secret he was desperate to protect. I used a sophisticated deepfake to create a compelling, anonymous digital threat that subtly suggested his secret was on the verge of exposure. The message was untraceable, a digital phantom designed to sow distrust and paralyze his actions against Evelyn's team, forcing him to divert Blackwood resources to protect his own vulnerability. It was a psychological masterstroke suggested directly by the Sentinel's understanding of human nature. While these defensive maneuvers bought Dr. Reed's team crucial time, the fight against the propaganda AI raged on. Blackwood, realizing their AI was being exposed, adapted.
They launched a new wave of disinformation, more subtle, more pervasive, designed to exploit deep-seated societal anxieties and historical grievances. The Sentinel's urgency pulsed through my mind. Humanity was dangerously close to choosing fear over reason, division over unity. A vision of the cracking earth returned, clearer than ever. This time, the cracks were not just geopolitical, they were societal, cultural, tearing apart the very fabric of communities, pushing neighbor against neighbor. I understood then that the Great Sundering wasn't just a single war, it was the total unraveling of human civilization, a descent into chaos fueled by our own deepest fears and manipulated by forces that thrived on it. I worked tirelessly, using the Sentinel's insights to develop new counter-algorithms, teaching my systems not just to identify disinformation, but to predict its evolution, to expose the logical fallacies and emotional manipulation before they could take root. It was a digital arms race, fought in the silent depths of the internet, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. My solitude in the bunker became a crucible, forging me into something more than a physicist, a digital warrior, guided by aliens, fighting for the soul of humanity against its own self-destructive impulses. The irony was not lost on me.
The pressure was immense. Blackwood's counteroffensives grew more aggressive, their methods more desperate. The quantum energy research by Dr. Reed's team was on the cusp of public release, a breakthrough that promised to change everything, but Blackwood was mobilizing its full force to stop it. Simultaneously, the global propaganda AI, though weakened, still managed to sow seeds of mistrust and division, pushing humanity closer to the brink. The Sentinel's communications were now a constant, urgent presence, like an alarm bell ringing in my skull. The Great Sundering was no longer a distant threat, it was a shadow lengthening over the entire planet. I received a chilling directive from the Sentinels. Blackwood had discovered a critical vulnerability in Dr. Reed's lab. Not a digital one, but a physical one, an overlooked access point that would allow a team of operatives to infiltrate her facility and steal or destroy the core research data. The attack was imminent, planned for a specific window within the next 48 hours. I had to alert them, but how? Direct contact was still too dangerous, too risky to expose the Harbinger project. The Sentinels guided me to a subtle yet undeniable method. Using their advanced understanding of human perception and my now-mastered digital ghosting techniques, I orchestrated a series of seemingly innocuous glitches in Dr. Reed's lab's internal systems, not enough to cause alarm, but enough to trigger an automatic security audit. Within that audit, I embedded a series of highly specific, encrypted warnings, anomalies in energy readings, faint echoes of suppressed frequencies that, when cross-referenced with the lab's blueprints, would unmistakably highlight the vulnerable access point. It was a digital treasure hunt designed to be solved by brilliant minds under pressure. I watched with bated breath. The clock was ticking. 24 hours passed. Then, in alert on my bunker monitors, Dr. Reed's team had detected the glitches. They were running the audit. Another 12 hours. A flurry of internal communications from their lab, intercepted by my now formidable surveillance network, confirmed they had found the embedded warnings. They were fortifying the access point, deploying advanced experimental countermeasures. Relief washed over me, brief but profound. The physical breach was averted. Evelyn and her team were safe, for now. But this success came at a cost. My heightened activity had created a digital signature, a fleeting echo that Blackwood's most advanced AI hunter-killers latched onto. The Sentinel's warnings intensified. Blackwood had deployed a digital dragnet, a sophisticated global sweep designed to pinpoint the source of the recent disruptions. They were closing in on my bunker's location. The isolation, once my greatest strength, was now my gravest vulnerability.
The Sentinels then conveyed a final monumental directive. The time for subtle intervention is drawing to a close, Eris Thorn. Humanity requires a direct catalyst. The quantum energy breakthrough must be revealed to the entire world irrevocably within the next 72 hours. This act will force the choice upon them: unity for survival or chaos for destruction. This is your final push. This was it, the grand reveal, not just to a scientific collective, but to the entire planet. It was an unprecedented act, one that would shatter the existing global power structures and force humanity to confront its future. But to do this, I needed an untraceable, unstoppable global broadcast, and Blackwood was breathing down my neck. The Sentinels provided the answer: a rarely used, highly encrypted, globally synchronized satellite network built by international collaboration decades ago and long considered obsolete, now kept on a low-power maintenance mode by a handful of aging engineers. It was the perfect conduit, invisible to modern surveillance, capable of broadcasting a message to every device on Earth. But activating it and embedding the data would require an immense surge of my bunker's power, creating an undeniable energy signature. It would expose me completely. I began preparing. I compiled all of Dr. Reed's groundbreaking research, cross-referenced with the Sentinel's own theoretical advancements, into a single, undeniable manifesto of quantum energy. I created a compelling, universally understandable video presentation, stripped of jargon, highlighting the immense potential for peace and prosperity, contrasting it with the dire consequences of the Great Sundering. It was a message of hope, backed by the chilling reality of what awaited if humanity failed to act. As I worked, the bunker systems began to flash red. Blackwood's digital dragnet had found me. Alarms blared, not from my systems, but from the raw external sensors I had placed around the bunker. Their physical teams were on their way. I had moments. I initiated the broadcast sequence, pouring all the remaining power into activating the ancient satellite network. The hum of my equipment rose to a deafening roar. This was my final act as Project Harbinger, to send the truth at the cost of my freedom, perhaps my life. The image of the cracking earth flashed in my mind, but this time, intertwined with it, was a vision of humanity, united, harnessing the power of the stars. It was a gamble, the greatest gamble in human history, and I was about to roll the dice.
The bunker shuddered. Above me, I heard the dull thud of heavy boots, the muffled shouts of Blackwood operatives. They had breached the outer defenses. My time was running out. On my main console, the global broadcast progress bar crawled towards completion. 97%, 98%, 99%. I poured every last watt of power into the ancient satellite network. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits. The air crackled with raw energy. My fingers hovered over the final key, the one that would unleash the truth upon the world. The Sentinel's presence, usually a subtle hum, was now a roaring chorus in my mind, a symphony of urgent encouragement and profound farewell. Just as the progress bar hit 100%, the heavy steel door to my control room exploded inward. Shards of metal flew and dust filled the air. Silhouetted against the blinding tactical lights were heavily armed Blackwood operatives, their faces obscured by helmets, their weapons leveled at me. "Eris Thorn," a voice boomed, distorted by a tactical comms unit. "Stand down. Your game is over." I didn't flinch. My eyes were fixed on the screen. The broadcast confirmation flashed green. Global uplink complete. Message delivered. A triumphant surge of energy coursed through me, overwhelming the fear, the exhaustion, the pain. I had done it. Against impossible odds, against the most powerful forces on Earth,
and guided by intelligences from beyond, I had delivered the Sentinel's message. The quantum energy research, the undeniable truth about Blackwood's manipulations, the stark choice between war and unity. It was all out there, broadcasting to every screen, every device, every corner of the globe. Humanity now knew. The lead operative stepped forward, his weapon still aimed at my chest. "What have you done, Thorne?" I looked up, a wry, tired smile on my face. "I've given humanity a choice," I said, my voice hoarse but firm. "The great sundering is no longer inevitable. It's now up to them." Suddenly, the world went silent. Not just my bunker, but everything. The operatives froze, their weapons lowering slightly, their heads cocked as if listening to an inaudible sound. Their tactical lights flickered, then died, plunging the bunker into an eerie dimness, lit only by the last dying glows of my consoles. Then, from the glowing remnants of my main screen, the abstract, fluid face of the Sentinels reappeared. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a direct, localized projection, visible to everyone in the room. A collective gasp, then murmurs of shock and disbelief rippled through the Blackwood team. The Sentinel's voice echoed, not just in my mind, but audibly, resonating through the very concrete of the bunker. A calm, powerful presence. "Your path has been set, humanity. The truth has been illuminated. The choice is now truly yours. We have done what we can." The ethereal face pulsed once, a silent nod of acknowledgement to me, then dissolved. The dim lights of the bunker flickered back to life. The Blackwood operatives stared, dumbfounded at the empty space where the projection had been, their faces pale under their helmets. They had just witnessed undeniable proof of what they had been trying so desperately to suppress. My eyes met the lead operative's. His fear had been replaced by something else. Confusion, perhaps, even a hint of awe. The world had just been irrevocably changed. My identity as Eris Thorne might be over, but Project Harbinger had just begun on a global scale. What happened next for me, I cannot say. My future, like humanity's, became uncertain in that moment. But I knew one thing: the seeds had been planted. The slumbering masses had been awakened. The fight was no longer mine alone. It belonged to everyone. And as the operatives finally moved to apprehend me, I felt a sense of peace. My burden was lifted. The cosmic truth, once a secret shared only with me and the stars, was now in the hands of all humanity. The choice for life or for the great sundering was finally theirs to make. And for the first time in a long time, I had hope.